Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to the channel. My name is AP Calculus, and today I'll be reading the first half of the second chapter of Double Dare by Totally AUs. This chapter is called What We Deserve, and here is the summary. Bakugo and Midoriya have a confrontation. Midoriya gets spontaneous on-the-job first aid training. Dare meddles and finds a better alternative to Midoriya's current education. Now, as I said before, this is the first half of this chapter. And also, if it sounds odd, it's because I'm laying down while recording this, because I really don't want to sit up while recording today. It is nearly midnight, and it's just like, no. Anyway, hope you have a good time, and let's start this video. Dare couldn't help but feel a little guilty. He knew it was a major breach in confidentiality and trust, but he needed information and he needed it fast. So, yeah, maybe he hacked into some academic and medical files. Maybe he spent 3 hours familiarizing himself with the documented cases of bullshit a kid he just met had to go through. Maybe he even pulled up the digital files of the past yearbooks to try to identify the bullies he spotted the night before, but he did it with the best of intentions, and in the end that's what really matters, right? He wasn't stalking him, he was gathering necessary intel for a mission, or 3 concurrent missions really. Operation Save the Kid, Operation Train the Hero, and now his latest change, Operation Shut Down Aldera Middle. During his investigation, some deeply troubling puzzle pieces started falling into place. The last reported case of Midoriya's bullying was halfway through his first year there, and despite the incident report showing clear unnecessary violence being used against him, he was the only one to get into any trouble. The 2 cases before had similar results. Students using Midoriya as their personal punching bag to take out their aggression and test their quirks. Him being near powerless to protect himself, and then him ending up in detention for wasting teachers' time and making false allegations. He may have only met Midoriya yesterday, but he knew they weren't false reports. If anything, he would have held back on the extent of the damage. Furthermore, there was no way this stopped after his last report. He almost definitely decided it wasn't worth the effort to report it, given that the teachers never gave a shit anyway. A deeper dive into the school's files gave him access to some security camera footage, and it took a disturbingly small amount of time to confirm that feeling. If it wasn't outright damage, it was cruel words and cutting glances. It was isolation and discrimination and horrible jokes. It was being reminded all day, every day, that he was useless, worthless, and quirkless. Or that his dreams were foolish and could never come true. He had already promised he would help Midoriya train for the entrance exam, but after seeing all of that, and knowing it was only a fraction of the whole story, Dare mentally raised the importance of his mission to priority number 1. He wasn't just going to meet up with this kid on the weekends and teach him self-defense. He was going, like he was initially planning. No, he was going to commit 100%. 4 hours a day, 6 days a week. He was going to make sure to do everything in his power he could, so this kid has the tools needed to prove those assholes wrong. At the same time, he wasn't going to force Midoriya into this either. He was going to lay out his ideas and his intentions and give the kid a chance to decide for himself if it was what he wanted, and he was going to make it clear he could back down or scale back whenever he wanted. Dare never really had a choice in his own training, and he wasn't about to inflict any of that damage onto someone else. But Midoriya readily and enthusiastically agreed to all his suggestions. They set up a working schedule, plotted out the details and phases of their training, and Darrow was feeling really enthusiastic about the potential he was already seeing in his new pupil. When their workout had finished, Midoriya headed home for the day, with the promise to see Darrow again at the same time tomorrow. But Darrow would be seeing him much sooner. He tracked Midoriya from behind in the shadows the whole way home. He wasn't stalking, he insisted to himself. It was training, for both of them. It would passively keep Darrow's own self and parkour skills up, but it would also be a sort of test for Midoriya, seeing how long it would take for his instincts and situational awareness to kick in and notice Darrow's presence. He did not mention this part of the training when he went over his plans with Midoriya. Doing so would have been counterproductive to its purpose. If you know ahead of time to be on the lookout, then you wouldn't really be honing your natural instincts, just testing your anxiety. He wasn't spotted today, but that was to be expected. It was only day 1. On his estimate, it will take about a month for him to suspect anything, and another 2 or 3 for the boy to actually catch him. Give or take a month depending on how well he took to certain aspects of his new regimen. Once he confirmed his student was safely inside his own home, he headed off to his nightly patrol. It was a slow night, all things considered. A purse snatcher or 2 that were clotheslined and incapacitated in under a minute each, and an attempted drug deal that's dissolved once the dealer realized that stabbing a knife through his hand would do nothing to slow Darrow down. By the time he arrived back in the van, he was equipped with a new hand and a new switchblade. He always loved getting freebies, but he wished the method of acquiring them was a little bit more pleasant. Darrow's quirk was unique, to say the least. He never fully understood it, was never made privy to any information that would help him understand who or what he was, but a lifetime of experience and experimentations led him to the following understanding. From his best estimate, it was some sort of regeneration quirk with a dash of shapeshifting thrown in for fun. Anytime a part of his body took some form of serious damage, it would simply be replaced. It wasn't healing per se, nor was it invincibility. The broken pieces were just replaced with a new one. But the lack of genetic coding to tell his quirk what he was supposed to look like meant the overall form and appearance of the new bits were seemingly randomized. It was always humanoid and generally close to the same size of the part he has lost, so that much was a mercy. The most lopsided he had ever been was that one leg that came in 1.5 inches longer than the other. Not a huge deal, but it had thrown him off enough that a week later he gave in and broke the other one in a desperate attempt to even himself back out. It worked, and he was now taller for it, but boy, that was an unpleasant 30 minutes. Bones were always unpleasant to reset. The more complex a replacement was to make, the longer it took, and hence the more uncomfortable it was to feel it developing. Skin was just a little itch for a second or 2. Muscles would ache for a few minutes, but it was hardly a distraction. Bones, that's where it started to become painful and time-consuming. The smaller ones didn't take that long, but those big boys in the arms and leg zones took a lot out of him, and the organs, those were akin to torture. The last time his heart got damaged, he spent an hour gasping on the floor through the pain and the nausea as he felt the broken core morph into something new. The lack of proper blood flow as he awaited for the reset to be complete meant that several other organs also failed and needed resetting. A chain reaction that lasted a full 12 hours of agony before it had finally ended. Twice now, he'd have to regrow a finger from scratch when they were lost altogether in the line of duty. and once he had even made a fresh eye. But those were both minor enough that he managed to keep himself awake through the process of great effort. Anything bigger than that, though. The energy needed to reset from nothing meant he almost always got knocked out for at least a day or two from the effort. He could never be sure 100% how long it was. He was out, but it was long enough for his cat to be pissed off, but not long enough for her to try and eat him, so that was his best estimate. Maybe he would set a timer next time for science? The impulse dissolved immediately. He was loath to subject himself to any further experimentation than he already had to deal with growing up. The day he escaped from the lab was the best day of his life. He had no desire to return to that lifestyle anytime soon. They had lost track of the years that had passed since then, but several years of constant rubbernecking, palm-sweating, heart-palpitating vigilance later, it was clear that his captors had lost track of him, a helpful perk of having no traceable DNA or appearance. It meant that he was easy to lose, and any time he suspected he was spotted, he would simply do a full-body reset and move towns to throw them off his trail. God, he hated those days. Thankfully, it had been years since the last time a full reset was necessary. Usually a facial reset was more than sufficient, but even that still sucks. Still, it was worth it to be free from those monsters that raised him, to be fighting on the side of the good guys instead of being forced into, well, whatever the highest bidder paid the doctors to do to him. Dare stared down at his new palm, tracing the new lines with his mismatched fingers on the other side, hoping that his new palm would reveal a better fortune than the last. After allowing themselves a good 5 minutes of angsty bewilderment, he got to work cleaning and sanitizing his new switchblade. He then fed Patches, cleaned himself up in the shallows of the ocean, and crawled into his bed. It was about 3 a.m. now, and tomorrow was another day. A day where he would start his new job as a teacher in earnest. Hopefully he was good enough to do the task right. Midoriya was counting on him, putting his hopes and dreams in his freakish, ever-morphing hands. The last thing the poor kid needed was further letdowns. Dare was completely unaware that somewhere on the other side of town, Midoriya laid awake worrying about the exact opposite scenario, each of them determined to do the right thing by the other and not be a disappointment, and neither of them fully aware of just how much the other would soon come to shape the very course of their lives. The strings of fate brought these two together, but it was only the beginning of their shared journey. So much more still laid ahead. And as their eyes finally drifted to close for the night, their hands just so happened to lay in the direction of the other's location, as if subconsciously trying to reach out to the others to across the town, a habit that would continue without either noticing, notice each night for a long time to come. The 2 weeks since Midoriya had met Dare had been some of the best of his life. He had a new friend, a new routine, and a renewed sense of purpose and direction in his life. He was already starting to feel the difference in the way his body felt and carried itself too. It wasn't anything super noticeable from the outside. He had only been working out for 2 weeks after all, but he could tell he was improving, and Dare was sure to tell him as much almost daily. He still felt immensely guilty for the reason, but the absence of the biggest advocacy from school went a long way to reduce the overall suckage of Midoriya's school days as well. Bakugo was in the hospital for a week and a half and spent another 2 days at home with his family before returning to school angrier and more hostile than Midoriya had ever seen him. Some small guilty part of the back of his neck had hoped he would brush with had hoped that his brush with a villain would have made him a bit more sympathetic, but if anything, it seemed to make him more determined to prove he was still the best. As Midoriya tried and failed to block out all the painful jabs and deafening shouts from his childhood friend slung at him, he couldn't help but look at him with a fresh perspective. The burning crimson eyes held hate, rage, possibly even bloodlust. But there was something else in there as well, a shadow lingering deep in the back of his mind. Fear. Bakugo cornered him on his way to lunch, slamming his smoking palms on either side of the shorter boy's head against the rattling rockers. Where do you think you're going, Deku? I'm going for a few days and you think you have cafeteria privileges all of a sudden? He didn't bother to try to argue. He wasn't actually headed towards the cafeteria. He hadn't been allowed in there in years, instead electing to eat his lunch outside under the trees. But that hardly mattered. Once Bakugo decided you had sighted him somehow, there was no amount of pleading or logic that would change his mind. So Midoriya just stared into his eyes, willing his face to not make any sort of expression that the taller boy could take further offense to. Apparently this was not the right reaction either. The fuck you think you're looking at me like that? You think you're too good to talk to me now, huh? You think you're better than me? Answer me, you useless prick. There it was again, the fear drowning in a sea of hate and anger in his crimson eyes. I know you're better than me, Kachan. You always have been, he reassured. You're damn right I am. I'm gonna be the number one hero, and you're nothing but a bug for me to stomp on my way to greatness. Don't you ever forget that, he shouted as he slammed his angry fist into Midoriya's gut, knocking the wind out of him temporarily. He probably could have dodged the attack, blocked it with his hands to lessen the blow, but let him do it anyway. It was Midoriya's fault he had spent the past 2 weeks recovering. If he needed to take his frustration out on him, then he was entitled to do so. Seemingly satiated for now, the angry blonde turned on his heels and began stomping towards the cafeteria, leaving Midoriya slumped against the lockers, his hand clenching his bruised abdomen. I'm sorry, he whispered under his breath. The fuck did you just say? The blonde shouted as he rushed back to the scene. Shit, Midoriya didn't think he would hear him from that far away. Bakugo grabbed the collar of Midoriya's shirt to yank him back into an upright position against the lockers, his other palm sparking as the constant tiny warning sparks he raised. The fuck are you apologizing for, huh? You think I'm weak now or some shit? You think UA won't take me just because of one stupid villain attack? You're wrong. I'm still the best, and I'll fucking prove it. I'll kick your ass, Deku. I'll fucking kill you. Midoriya braced for the impact as the scorching heat and strong fists pummeled against his torso again and again. As his body slumped down, now held aloft only by the fist still rendering his collar, his attacker seemed to sober up enough to realize the extent of the damage he was doing and toss Midoriya to the ground. Shit! Look what you made me do, you useless jack. You tricked me. This is all your fault. This is... fuck. And with that, he sprinted off down the hall. Wheezing all the way, Midoriya managed to drag himself and his backpack to a seated position against the lockers. He knew he needed some form of medical attention from all the burns and bruises, but he didn't want to go to an actual hospital. His mum would worry too much, and he wouldn't be able to hide who had done this to him for long before she figured it out. Even with the school doing its best to bury it, it may be a big enough stain on Bakugo's record that UA might not accept him into the heroics course. He may be a bully, but he had the potential to be a great hero one day, and it had been his dreams they shared since they were little kids. He could never take that chance from him. Plus, he had gone through a lot recently, and he wasn't wrong about it being Midoriya's fault. Once he got enough oxygen back to think properly, Midoriya pulled out his phone and texted the only person he thought he could help. Dare, hypothetically, how would one go about treating some moderate to severe burns with little to no medical supplies? Less than a minute later, he got a response. Is this actually hypothetical, or did someone spontaneously combust next to you? More like a series of blasts opposed to combustion, and they aren't next to me. Midoriya's phone rang loudly in his hands, Dare electing to call him instead. He was afraid of this, but he answered all the same. Being able to put him on speaker would be easier than trying to text and patch himself up at the same time anyway. Say psych right now, was the only greeting Dare gave him, sounding a little breathless himself. Midoriya tried to peel away his scorched and bloody uniform shirt to assess the damage. He smelled like meat. He tried his best not to stifle the pain groan at the realization earned, but failed spectacularly, rousing through his bag to check for supplies as he spoke through clenched teeth. All I've got is some ace bandage and some Niso spray. Shit. Are you still at school? Who's taking you to the hospital? No hospital. Mum would freak out. She would never let me leave the house again. She's right to worry. You're injured. Dare, he protested. Izuku. He cut him off in defiance. He blushed at the sudden use of his given name, but continued his point all the same. I don't want to give her or anyone else any more reasons to say my dreams are too dangerous. No hospitals. Now will you help me or not? Shit. Yeah, I'm on my way. Can you walk? Midoriya could hear the rapid sound of feet against the pavement and rushing wind. Dare was clearly sprinting to his destination. I think so? Good. Where are you right now? You want me to meet you out the front? Only if you can do so without hurting yourself. Yeah, hang on one sec. Midoriya took a deep breath and braced himself as he struggled to stand up. Back up. His legs were still shaking with the exhaustion and adrenaline, and being any form of upright made his entire abdomen shudder in pain. But beyond that, he was perfectly mobile. Yeah, I'll make it, he finally confirmed as he picked up his bag and began to shuffle outside. Dare stayed on the line the entire time, but both boys were too preoccupied trying to reach each other to say anything. Another 5 minutes later, Midoriya finally pushed open the front door to the school and clung to the handrail of the stairs. In the time it took for him to buckle over and give 3 shaky breaths, he heard Dare huffing his way through the front gates. Hey, stay with me, alright? Dare said in a breathless panic. Strong hands grabbed either side of Midoriya's shoulders and attempted to stand him up again. Midoriya winced at the stench of burnt skin, but stayed up. Dare's eyes went wide as he looked over the wrecked shirt, still hanging loosely from his body. We need to get you somewhere where I can at least kind of sterile, so I can treat this. Dare's gaze darted back and forth across nothing as he seemed to formulate all possible routes. Is your mother home right now? No, she works until 7. Perfect. I'm taking you home. My place is a literal dump. Midori worried his bottom lip, unsure of how to tell him he couldn't walk that far without making him worry so much that he took him to the hospital instead. As if reading his mind, Dare said, I'm going to carry you. Is that okay? Midoriya furrowed his brows. It was a solid 20-minute walk from from here to his house, which seemed too far for someone to carry him, but he wasn't sure what other options he had. He nodded his consent. Dare grabbed Midoriya's bag from him and slung it on his shoulders, then carefully hoisted him up into a bridal carry, as if he weighed nothing more than a small dog. They somehow made the journey in a little under 15 minutes, Midoriya trying all the while not to wince, groan, or blush too much in the boy's hold. Dare set him down at the front door at his apartment so he could unlock it, using his arms to hold him steady as he did so. Once inside, Dare helped sit him down on the side of the tub. Alright, okay. You like getting undressed. Is it alright if I borrow your laptop real quick? Yeah, it's on the desk in my room. First floor to the right. Dare gave a swift nod in response and jogged there and back, laptop in hand. He set the laptop on the counter and began rapidly typing something that Midoriya couldn't quite catch from his perch. Meanwhile, Midoriya got to work unbuttoning his ruined top before tossing it like a crumpled piece of paper into the corner of the room. It was a good thing he had a few spares already. Okay, all set, Dare said as he closed the laptop. Now, as far as the school is concerned, you've currently got a dentist appointment. Your mum won't even know you left. Relief flooded his system. He hadn't even thought about that. But it would make sense for the school to call his mum when they realised he hadn't returned from lunch. Midoriya expected him to ask all sorts of questions about what happened, but he didn't. Dare's personality seemed to flip into an absolute focus mode as he cleaned and dressed the wounds with careful, nimble fingers. The only words he said the whole time were asking if he could find the towels and make a quick apology whenever Midoriya makes a sound of distress. As he finished the last roll of bandage from his first aid kit, Dare looked up into Midoriya's eyes. Is everything okay? He asked with a bit of concern. It was all he could manage while his friend's currently golden eyes peer into his own. Dare stood and offered himself as a brace so Midoriya could do the same. Then, when they made their way over to the couch, Dare found a shirt in Midoriya's room to replace the one he threw away and helped him into it before they sat down on the other side of the couch. A moment or two of silence stretched between them before Midoriya finally broke the silence. Are you going to ask me about it? Do you want to talk about it? Not really. Then no. Oh. A few more beats of silence passed, then Dare was the one to speak up. I do have one question. Okay. He agreed with a slight sigh. It only seemed fair. What do you want to do about it? About Bakugo. Midoriya was stunned by this. He never said who did this. He was almost 100% sure he had never even said the name before, much less named him as his tormentor. So how did he know this? He's the guy that did this to you, right? I know you guys have a long history. I'm more than willing to get involved if you want me to, but I'm not going to make a move without getting your go-ahead first. This brought more questions than answers. How did you know? Dare looked down at his hand, then back up at Midoriya, swallowing thickly before he answered. I may have done some digging after we first met. Dare's speech rushed to defend himself as he explained. I know I shouldn't have. It was weird and invasive, and you have every right to be pissed at me about it. But I had to know what was going on, so I know how best to help you. And after hearing what that dude said to you and finding you on a roof 30 minutes later, I figured it was best to get the the info direct from the source rather than forcing you to talk about it, and Midoriya held up a hand to cut him off, gathering his thoughts. He had heard them. That's why he tried to give him his notebook. Why he had tracked him down so desperately and let him cry all over him. That's why they went to the park and gave him his number and offered to help him train. All because he felt sorry for him. Did he actually believe Midoriya at all, or was this just a charity case? You don't have to. He's not really sure what he's trying to say until he's already saying it. You don't have to pretend to like me. I'm not gonna jump just because you stop hanging out with me. You're a vigilante. You have better things to do than waste your time on me. So if that's what you're worried about, you can just go. He wanted it to sound passive, like it wouldn't shatter his heart to see him leave, but the tears were already starting to form in his traitorous eyes. What? Midoriya was surprised to see Dare also look upset at this notion. It's fine, Midoriya said with a wobbly lip. He wished he could have more control over. You don't owe me anything. I'm not your problem to deal with. Yes, you are. Dare's hands reached out to grab Midoriya's, but he reflexively flinched away from the contact. So Dare apologetically returned his own hand to his lap. He shook his head and then backpedaled a little bit. That's not what I meant. You're not a problem at all. I don't owe you anything, and you don't owe me anything either. I don't spend my time with you out of, obligation or whatever. I do it because I want to. I'm training you because I want to see you succeed. Because we're friends, aren't we? Midoriya wasn't sure what to say. On paper, it was exactly what he wanted to hear, but the nagging voice in the back of his head insisted that it couldn't possibly be true. That he was foolish to ever think his kindness was anything but sympathy for his pathetic, bullied little quirkless kid. He must have been quiet for a bit too long because the next thing Dare said had a bit of a wobble to it. Do you want me to leave, Izuku? Midoriya's head snapped up to look at him. Dare's head was down, avoiding his gaze, but there was a defeated look on his face, like he had expected to be kicked to the curve at a moment's notice. Midoriya knows the feeling all too well. No, Midoriya corrected a little too urgently, causing Dare to flinch. No, I want you to say, if you really want to, that is. I just don't want you to think that. Dare braved a look his way now, looking more hopeful than before. I've never had a real friend before, Midoriya admitted before he could think better of it. The only other friend I had growing up, well, I'm sure you know he's the one who... my point is that you're my first friend that I've actually wanted to be my friend back. I don't want to lose you, but at the same time, I don't want you to hold back either. You're putting a lot of time and effort into helping me, and I haven't done anything back to pay you back for that. So if there's any part of you that's doing it to make me feel happy when yourself aren't also enjoying it, then I don't want it. Dare took a long, deep breath before they replied. I haven't had a lot of friends either. It's hard when you look like, when you live the kind of life that I do. You get used to a lot of rotating door relationships. Anyone who doesn't immediately run for the hills tends to think twice when I show up with a new hand or a whole new face. He gestured to himself for emphasis as he spoke. And I don't blame them, because honestly, it makes sense for them to be freaked out by that. and I'm sure it's hard to get attached when you don't really know who or what you're getting attached to. So, like, fair, I guess. I know it's only been 2 weeks, but you beat my record for the longest friendship ever after like the 3rd day. So that pit of guilt ate Midoriya again. He himself initially ran away in fear from Dare. It is now a moment locked into the top 5 lists of actions he regrets most in his life. Dare still hasn't really answered his question, but in a way he has. Midoriya thinks he understands him and his motivation's a bit better now, even if he's still missing a big part of the puzzle. The edge bits are all together now. He's hoping that over time they can build each other up a bit more. Dare. Midoriya hesitantly reached out his hand towards Dare, just like he had done for him earlier, and cautiously the other boy takes it. I'm not going anywhere if you don't, Midoriya promised with determination. Dare flashed a big smile at him for this, one Midoriya was quick to return. Then it's settled then, Dare said cheerfully. There's no getting rid of me now. Once you're all healed up, and we'll get back to your training. And in the meantime, I'm just going to keep annoying you until you feel better. Midoriya chuckled in response. He wasn't sure if he should be taking his hand back or not, but Dare made no move to pull back, so neither did he. So, what do you normally do for fun? This is officially a rest day, Dare proclaimed. Do you like comics? Maybe. I haven't had a chance to read any of them yet. You never... Midoriya cut himself off and stood a bit too fast before he remembered the reason Dare was at his house in the first place. He didn't lose sight of his mission though. He hobbled in the direction of his room, calling to Dare over his shoulder. That's it. Follow me. It's my turn to teach you something. Okay, jeez. Slow down, you're gonna aggravate your burns, he said with a chuckle as he followed behind. Okay, everyone. That was the first half of Chapter 2 of Double Dare by Totally AUs. I really enjoyed this one. I wasn't exactly sure where to end it, so I ended it a little bit further than the halfway point, but I hope you enjoyed it all the same. Hope you guys enjoyed it, as I said before, and I'll see you guys later. Bye bye.